Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Levi, and welcome to our show, The Dr. Levi Show. Our intention for this show is always to inspire you, to educate you, and really, and most importantly, to allow you to activate your best possible you, the way you define that. And of course, as I've said many times here, I think it's so important to live a life of service. It's so important to be involved in your community, to make the microcosm of your neighborhood better, hopefully make the city where you are better, and hopefully make the state where you live better, and to continue to expand that, make the nation where you're a part of even better. How do you do that? Well, by being active in your community, being a sponsor of volunteer organizations, doing what you can to make the world a better place. I'm really happy to have you with us today. I want to really thank all of you for interacting with me on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, all the social media sites. It's a lot of fun interacting with you, but more importantly, I love the fact that you trust me enough to ask me many of your questions that are medically oriented. But I want to remind you, it's so important that I say this caveat that you have to be seen by your regular doctor. I'm sort of like your virtual doctor, but I don't have a chance to actually examine you fully, do a complete history. So I enjoy trying to answer your questions, but it's still important that you go to your doctor, be seen appropriately, be evaluated, and get the proper, current, appropriate treatment for your issues. All right? So with that said, I want to tell you about our show today. Our show is really about the veterans. You know how passionate I am about veterans care, about veterans' lives. And I'm passionate about that because I've said many times here before, those men and women are the real heroes of America. Remember, we have our sustained freedoms because of them. We have a country that sustains its freedoms for other countries because of the veterans that are here today. So I think it's so important that we always honor them and that we're always aware of what they've sacrificed. When it comes to sacrifice, let's put that in perspective. What do they sacrifice? Well, they sacrifice their lives, they sacrifice their body parts, they sacrifice their hearing, they sacrifice their sight, they sacrifice their families, they sacrifice their minds. There's so much that they sacrifice. Why? Because they have such an ingrained, intrinsic love for this country that we call America, the greatest country on the earth. So with that said, we all owe so much to veterans. We all should be more compassionate, more loving, more understanding, more giving. As I've told this story before, and I'll tell it today before I introduce our guest, but I was really, I say, of all of the interactions I've had with veterans, the one that I found to be the most emotionally jolting for me was I was going to a Whole Foods market here in Los Angeles. And as I was going in, there was a veteran who was there outside who had a sign for food and who needed help. So when I walked past him, I started speaking to him, and we talked a little bit. I said, well, listen, tell me what you want. I said, unfortunately, I don't have my credit card, but I have some cash. I said, so tell me what you want, and I'll go and get everything. So he gave me a list of everything he wanted. So I went in, I got his things, and there was things that I wanted. I couldn't get them. I only could get one out of all the things I wanted to get, which was fine. So I got those things, and I went back out, and I spoke to him, and I said, it's really, it's unfortunate that you as a group, the veterans, are not given more care, more justice, more health. I said, there's so much that our country needs to do better for you. So we talked for a few minutes, and then I said, well, I hope that helped you. And he said, yeah, it really did. And so he started looking a little bit sad. I said, are you okay? And he said, well, I'm okay. And then when I turned to walk away, he said, well, you know what, can I give you a hug? I said, well, sure, you give me a hug. You're a hero. Of course you can. And so I said, I should have asked you for a hug. So he gives me a hug, and I hug him. And after about 10, 15 seconds or so, I kind of pull away, and he hugs me tighter. And then after like 35 seconds, 40 seconds, I try to pull away again. He hugged me even harder. So I just hugged him back. So I hugged him. It was like a hug fest going on. So I hug him. And then finally I pulled back slightly. And as I pulled back, my left shoulder here was just wet. I mean, just wet. So as I slightly pushed him away, I said, you okay? And so he's just crying tremendously. He said, yeah, I'm okay now. I said, well, what's the matter? I said, I bought everything you wanted. I said, well, here you go. I have some more money. And so I gave him I think I had like 14 or $18 left. I gave him the rest of the money. He said, no, that's not it. He said, I've been out here for many, many hours. He said, you're the first person that acknowledged me. You're the first person that spoke to me. You're the first person that treated me like a human being. And he said, I couldn't believe it. So I hugged him back. And as I hugged him for about a minute or so, then his left shoulder was wet because, I became really emotional, thinking that how can we as a people not value the extraordinary contribution that veterans have made to our country, to our communities, and to the world at large. It just blew me away. So that was a very emotional time for me, and that was a real life-changing event for me as a person, as a human being, as a man, as someone who served in the military. I was in the Navy ROTC program at the University of Notre Dame for 2 years, which was a great experience for me, and I was always appreciated that. And had a chance to go on some missions which were interesting in Northern California, which I'll tell you about one day. I was on a frigate for several months during the summer. So with that said, I think the veterans are really an extraordinary group of phenomenal human beings that we really should be aware that they deserve more respect. They should get the best health care. They should never be without because they've given so much. I just want to be really clear about that. So in a few minutes, I'm going to bring on my guests, and I'm going to let them tell you about what they do, and more importantly, I'll let them tell you about service. What does it really mean to be a veteran? How do they define that? What does it mean to be someone who's given so much and come back to a country where you were almost disavowed and treated like you're less than? I think we have to shed light on that. How are we doing that? How do we do that? Well, I think we do that by giving this platform, this show, the Dr. Levi Show, a platform for other people can talk about their experiences. All right. Now, I want to give you the medical moment for today. There's going to be several things I want to talk about. One is alcohol. I got a lot of texts this morning, oddly, from about 20 plus patients asking me about alcohol and why is alcohol bad. So let's go over a few quick things. Be like 30 seconds. So alcohol, we know, is a carcinogen. So meaning that it does cause cancer. Now, the issue here is how much do you have to drink for that to actually manifest? Well, we're really not sure. There are a lot of guidelines, from the American Cancer Association, I think from American Medical Association, of saying that a woman can drink up to 1 glass of alcohol a day. A man, I shouldn't say 1 glass, but 1 drink per day, and a woman a man 2 drinks per day, and a woman 1 drink per day. Now, if you think about it, that's a lot of drinking over a month. That's a lot of drinking over a year. So, myself as a non-drinker, coming from a dad who was an extraordinary, violent alcoholic, I've never had any thought in my life of thinking about drinking, of anything, never a drink, and no intention either. So with that said, yes, I think you should avoid and minimize alcohol use. The safe standards, they change constantly. So I think if you can, don't. If you really want to value, which I always say, every cell in your brain, don't drink it away, don't smoke it away. So don't snort it away either. So those are my thoughts about that. So I think minimize it. Now, because it is Veterans Day, I should say, this coming Saturday, the 11th, we celebrated on Friday the 10th. It gives an opportunity to really reflect on the achievements of the veterans, but I think medically it gives us a chance to think about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which can manifest in many ways. So let's go over a few things about that. So PTSD can manifest with depression, with the feeling of stress, anxiety, of feeling alienated and isolated, not accepted, minimizing one's self-worth, flashbacks about what happened to them, nightmares, as well as night sweats, feelings of insecurity, feelings of social inadequacy. All of these things can be a part of the syndrome of post-traumatic stress disorder. So with that said, I recommend the following. If you're having, any of those, but there's a whole really a library, there's a big list of other things that can be included in post-traumatic stress disorder. If you have them, if you know of someone who has those, then you know what? Don't be a bystander. It's like bullying. We say there are three types of bullying. There's the bully, there's the bullied, and there's the bystander. It's like life. Don't be a bystander. Be involved. If you can reach out and help another human being, guess what? It's incumbent upon you to do that to the best that you can. Maybe you cannot help financially. I got it. But you can help by making a phone call. You can help by getting them involved with a program that may help them. You can maybe talk to their family about, hey, what can we do as a community to help this person who's struggling? So the key, I really think, with life, like this show, it's about inspiration, education, and activation. We want to activate the best possible you. Why? So you can be of service to the world, because we're waiting for you. That's the key. Now, I want to tell you about our guests. I want to say a few things before I bring them on. It's really interesting, when we do this show, for every show, right before we start, I always go out and I meet the guests. And I just talked to him a little bit, before our producer show, Janet Rodriguez. She actually does a pre-interview with literally everyone before. And then I talked to them that morning. So when I went out today to talk to John and Larry, I felt, this is going to be something really interesting, I felt like I just knew them. I felt like, wow, these are good people. These are really good men. These are men that are living lives of service, living lives of purpose, but more importantly, living lives outside of themselves. It's not about just them. It's about giving back to the community, giving back to the veterans, and being a part of an organization that is really necessary. So I want to really thank and I want to welcome John Majkut as well as Larry Bustetter. I give myself an award because I pronounced that properly. I only practiced that 1,000 times. So I want to thank you both for being here with us today. So I want to talk about your organization. I'm going to read it because I want to say it properly. It's the Charles Robert Schultz OD Jr. Blind Rehabilitation Center.
Very nicely done.
Well, thank you very much. I'll clap for myself, give myself some applause. Well, really happy to have both of you with us. So thank you, John, and thank you, Larry. So let's talk about your organization. How long has it been around, and what's the focus of the organization?
Sure. So the VA, of course, we're part of a very large organization. As you know, we're serving veterans nationwide. We're doing everything that we can to serve veterans exceptionally well. It's been in the news. Some things are good, some things are not so good.
Yes.
I am very lucky, and I think Mr. Bustetter here at Larry is very lucky to be part of the Blind Rehab Center, which is really, if I may be a little immodest, it's kind of like the shining jewel of the VA. We're really blessed, very lucky to be working with veterans and to be able to provide the services that we do.
And what are the specific services that are provided for the veterans?
Right. Well, they're really quite wide. We are able to provide any veteran who is visually impaired or blind, and that's a wide spectrum.
Yes.
Services that will help them to adjust for that vision loss. So if you can see some, we're going to help you to see more. If you can't see, if you have profound loss, we're going to help you to adapt to that vision loss with other sensory skills. So regardless, we're going to help you to advance your skills to really perform daily tasks as independently as possible and just to be active. Just what has your life been previous to losing vision? How was it affected? And how are we going to bridge the gap to functional loss to being independent and getting out there and living your life again?
I think those are phenomenal goals. How many veterans are actually served with the program?
Annually, we serve approximately 150. I think our goal for this upcoming fiscal year is 200.
That's a lot.
That's just for the one center in Long Beach. But we serve quite a few folks. And I'll go into a little bit about the kind of the sub-programs within the Blind Rehab Center that we have. So we have Living Skills program, where folks come in. We have instructors that teach you how do you cook, how do you clean, how do you do basic things like put toothpaste on a toothbrush. How are you going to take care of those basic things that we take for granted on a daily basis? We have orientation and mobility. And Larry's going to have some stories for you about this that are really useful. How do you get from point A to point B? Los Angeles is actually a reasonably scary place to get from point A to point B without vision. So you might be using a cane, you might be using a dog, a guide dog. There are lots of techniques that go along with that. We have computer access. So if you can see some, we make things on the screen bigger.
Yes.
If you can see nothing, we have software that will speak.
Yes.
And that's built into some devices that we give out. iPhones, iPads, all speak now.
I think it's so important to really, I think for someone who has sight impairment to really maximize the technologies that are available, because that will really help them to really remain integrated within society, but more importantly, give them an opportunity to just enjoy life again. And not simply be on the outside being a bystander, but to really get involved.
Yeah, how do you engage?
Yes.
On a daily basis, how do you get up in the morning, feel useful, and have people appreciate you?
Yes.
Those are huge.
Those are huge. I totally agree with you. And also for them to feel like they are truly invested in society. They're not on the fringes of society that so many people may feel like they are if they have any type of physical disability or difference.
Right. Yeah. And vision is one of those things. It's invisible.
Absolutely.
People don't know that you're visually
Absolutely.
impaired just because people, first of all, frequently don't know what a white cane is for.
Yes.
They don't know someone's carrying a white cane. Sometimes they recognize it. Frequently they don't.
Correct.
I don't want to leave anybody out, however. As far as other services that we have, one of the most important things that we have is a stellar optometry department. Dr. Dang, the spouse of our namesake, is the head of optometry. And when someone comes in, we always each veteran gets a thorough, very intensive low vision exam that lasts from 1 to 2 hours. We take a look specifically, or they specifically look at what vision do they have, how can we change, how can we adapt to it, what devices will help you to see as much as you possibly can.
Yes. One thing I love about what you're saying is that it really your program gives everyone an opportunity to be served, meaning
Yes.
that whatever your level of sight or sightlessness is, we are here to serve you and to give you some opportunity to grow your field of vision, if I can use that.
Absolutely.
Because they are impaired, but doesn't mean you have to stay impaired. You may have that impairment, but it doesn't mean that you have a deficit for your life.
Right.
Okay.
You may start off with a functional deficit.
Yes.
By the time you're done with training, you may still have one. You may do things differently than you used to, but you're still doing things.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll say about this program is that it also gives the person with the impaired vision an opportunity to grow their community of support, which I think is very important, that they don't feel isolated, don't feel alienated or alone, but also know that we have a group here that will support you, that will care for you.
That's
and
right.
that will also give you what everyone strives for, which is freedom and independence.
Now, the last section that I want to mention,
Yes.
as far as programs within the Blind Rehab Center, is manual skills. I'm pretty partial to that. That's where I work. I teach a lot of things at the Blind Rehab Center, but manual skills is really teaching veterans how to use all your sensory information by doing creative things. So we have a full ceramic studio. We have a wood shop, all power tools, which doesn't sound like a brilliant idea. However, we get
Yes.
gentlemen that have been working with power
Yes.
tools their entire life. We teach them strategies so that they go in with 10 figures, they come out with 10 figures.
Absolutely.
And they can do things that are hugely meaningful to them. I've got a beautiful example of a gentleman that really gives back now. And I won't use his name, but he was with us about a year ago. And he hadn't used his wood shop in over a decade due to his vision loss. After working with him for a month together, we brainstormed a lot of different strategies. Now he's home, he's got his wood shop set up, he's making toys for children who have cancer.
That's fantastic.
So he's home, it's brought him meaning, it's bringing children meaning, and it's showing the community that just because you don't have much vision or any vision, you're still worthwhile.
Yes.
You're functional. You can
Yes.
do a lot. Now, that gentleman's no child either.
Right.
He's 93 years old.
See, that's a fantastic story, because it also reminds you that at any age you can contribute and give back to society. It's not about your level of sight or hearing impairment or loss of voice even. It's about how big your heart is. So I believe you have a big heart. You can really give back to any organization that you think is appropriate for what you want to give back.
That's right.
You know, I want to welcome Larry to the show. Larry Bustetter, I want everyone to know, is a veteran. He is someone who served in which war was it you said?
Vietnam.
Vietnam. And you were in which part of the service?
Air Force.
Air Force. Well, I want to hear about, before we get to the veterans part of this, I want to hear about your life before you chose to be involved in the military. What was life for you growing up? What were your parents like? Who inspired you to actually be involved and to become a military veteran?
It's a great question, Dr. Levi. My father was an Air Force pilot during World War II. He flew CG-4A gliders, and he was one of the lucky few that got to come home after that war. And I think your observation is right. He inspired some of my interest in the military. And as I grew up in that family, photos were all over the home
Yes.
of his experiences. In fact, on his tombstone, it says glider pilot.
Wow.
So, yes, that influenced me a lot to be certainly interested in the military when the time came. I had the privilege of going through undergraduate school as a biology major, fully sighted. All of those things were good, and became a clinical microbiologist eventually, working in infectious diseases. But after the military, when my vision decreased, I needed to make some changes. I don't know if I answered some
Oh,
of the
no,
lead-ups.
you definitely did. You definitely did. And I also want to know, what did you have brothers and sisters, and were any of them inclined to become involved with the military?
I have one sister, but she is not in the military. She is a public school teacher, retired.
She's a hero too.
Thank you. I believe that. My mother was a public school teacher, and I think all of those in my family who were in the public sector sort of led me to be more public sector versus private sector. Not that that's good or bad, but that was something I was very, very comfortable with. So naturally, when I left the military in '73, I picked a career with the Department of Veterans Affairs, as I mentioned a moment ago, as a microbiologist.
Yes.
So that was definitely public service setting. And then as I left the VA and my vision had continued to decrease the latter years in the VA, and I gave 34 years to them, but the last few years, certainly I couldn't work in the clinical setting, and so I became the Education Training Development Officer for the VA Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System right here in LA. And so during that role, I had the privilege to help people achieve a number of their career goals. And when I left there, I had the opportunity to pick up a part-time adjunct faculty appointment at Cal State Northridge. And it was at that point, because of the training I had received through places like the BRC, through the Vision Impairment Services team programs in the VA, I was still able, as the next 8 years or so rolled along, to continually be gainfully employed.
Yes. So it really shows you that two things there. One, you wanted to work, and two, you wanted to give back, and you did it. You did it actively.
Yes.
That's really, really impressive. Also, you were actually involved in, I would say, involved in military issues. You said for 34 years, helping veterans.
Well, I served in the military for 4 years active
Yes.
duty. And once I left there, like many of us, and particularly, and you said this very well earlier, Dr. Levi, during the Vietnam War, coming home, typically we didn't wear our uniforms into town. That was just the nature of the environment. And many of us avoided ROTC programs on college campuses in America, sadly, because of a lot of the things that were happening against that war.
Yes.
And so many of us found ourselves in settings in the military that might not have been what we would have gone into when we went into the military had things been different. I was very blessed in the fact that when I did go into the military and I decided to go in as a medic, I felt that fit me.
Yes.
And so I had the privilege, after basic training, to go to the Air Force's School of Healthcare Sciences for training as a medic. And fortunately, while I was there, the physician in charge of that wonderful facility in Wichita Falls, Texas, at Shepherd, maybe I said that already, Shepherd Air Force Base, had a dream to put on board with some of the folks that had been in the military all their careers, recent college grads who had taught for ideally a year at least,
Yes.
who were people in the biological sciences. And he picked about 30 of us, and we ended up with a 3-year controlled tour there at Shepherd, and we trained approximately 5,000 medics a year while I was there to send them mostly to Southeast Asia. And during that period of time, just an indication of what that time was like, we also had Vietnamese medics coming to us that we trained. And ironically, we had Iranian medics coming to us. So it was a very unusual and different time in our nation's history.
Yes, it was.
When we were doing that sort of thing. So
One thing I like to say that I just want to go back on that you glossed over very astutely and compassionately, but I have to get back to it, is the thought that, you give your life, you be of service to this country, and then you come back here, and then when you get back here, you're not embraced, but now you actually have to almost live in secrecy about the fact that you gave back because you're not welcome back. But the people not welcoming you are the ones that you've had to safeguard and give so much for. I don't understand that dynamic. I want you to shed some light about that. I really do.
wow. In fairness, I think we said we wouldn't talk politics, so we won't.
No, we won't. We won't talk politics. I want to talk about your experience because you lived this. It was your life.
Now, thankfully, as I indicated, I didn't need to go over to Southeast Asia. Many who did
Yes.
weren't privileged to come back, or
Yes.
if they came back, that was the treatment that many experienced.
Yes.
Those of us who were stateside, even, for example, where I was at Shepherd Air Force Base, we typically were told and didn't wear our uniforms into town during that time. And I reflect back on that and I think, wow.
Yes.
Why would that be the case?
Yes.
Because there are a lot of good people in America who are very pro, certainly, what we were trying to do.
Very much so.
And save a people from a very difficult situation. But the reality was that there was a lot of turmoil about that.
Yes.
And so when we came back into society, I think we simply sort of melted away, you might say. In my case, I really appreciated what I experienced in the military. And when I found out that there was an opportunity to work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, that was a natural flow for me.
Yes.
And so during that time of getting started with the VA, I had an opportunity to serve, I guess we could say, a lot of veterans in a variety of ways who were coming back from arenas like that. And certainly in my case, I didn't expect to be where I am today, for example, with vision loss as a result of military service. And in sort of an odd way, if you'd like, I'll give a quick synopsis of that.
Definitely.
But the base where I was stationed at Shepherd, we weren't hit, naturally, by bombs or bullets, thankfully, but we were hit by a raging red measles outbreak throughout Texas at that time. And the decision was made, which I confirmed later. In fact, it was a very real decision. We were vaccinated for a lot of things, a lot of exotic diseases around the world. The measles vaccine was not available until a few years before the late 60s. And I suspect the assumption might have been made that many of us had either had the case or had been vaccinated, but we weren't given the vaccine. And so when the measles virus hit our bases here in Texas, particularly San Antonio and Lackland, where the basic training was going on, then we would receive troops from there at Shepherd Air Force Base very sick with red measles, including in my situation when I had one troop that came up to me, I'll never forget, he said, "I don't feel very well today, sir." And I said, "You don't look very well."
Oh, right. Right.
And really, about 2 to 3 weeks thereafter, I didn't look very well either.
Yes.
As one clinician said, "You look like you almost have smallpox."
Wow.
With 104 fever max and things like that for 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm.
As a result of that, in my own case, that's where the vision loss began.
Yes.
I noticed my night vision became dysfunctional within about a year. And as certainly you're aware, most cases of red measles, you rise out of it and you don't have these vision loss issues, but a small percentage of us do, and I happened to fall into that camp. As time went by, my peripheral vision diminished because I was really dealing with a viral retinopathy, is in essence what was going on. It took some time to establish that, and thanks to the Blinded Veterans Association and to the Vision Impairment Services team folks at the VA, I was encouraged to explore what might be available for me to deal with this ongoing vision loss.
Yes.
And thankfully, they really did help me. And as a result of supporting my benefits quests, I was able to then ultimately take part in programs such as the Blind Rehab Center. I've been to 3 of them now, the one at Palo Alto and twice here at the Long Beach BRC. All of them unbelievably learner-centered experiences. As an old educator, I got to tell you, I don't think there's any place in the world that can match what's done in these blind rehab centers. And there's 13 or 14 of them, I'm told, around the country. I've been privileged to become a part of the Blinded Veterans Association, quite frankly, because of how well they served my needs.
Yes.
And to turn around and try to serve the needs of my fellow blinded vets became a centerpiece for me in the last few years, and I was inspired by others who were similarly challenged. And so it's been my privilege for this year, at least, to serve as the president of the Blinded Veterans Association Southern California Regional Group. We like to try to say that we were really blind vets helping blind vets.
That's a powerful statement. I think it's really an homage to the fact that there are organizations that really want to help the veterans, and they want to do that unconditionally. They want to step up and do what I feel more organizations and more people should do. One, to bring awareness about what veterans need, and two, to actually be involved in helping them to have sustained independence. That independence, not only just living independence, but also financial independence. You know, I've always thought that the veterans, there should be like, in my mind, some type of international or American organized fund to really help veterans live properly, where there's no financial struggle, there's no making it from month to month after giving so much in service. And I'm hoping that will transpire one day. The other thing I was thinking as you were saying that is, with the advent of technologies, I'm hoping that, with self-driving cars, once that technology is perfected, I think it'll be a phenomenal opportunity to have individuals with impaired sight actually gain even greater independence by being able to drive.
That's exciting. I'm trying to picture myself in that setting.
I can see you doing it. I can see you.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I've discovered in chatting with my fellow blinded vets is the issue of transportation.
Of course.
And so one of my personal goals, as I have shared now with a number of people and seem to be gaining interest in it, is to sort of sidebar a lot of the very good public service transportation options that are here, say, for example, in Southern California, but to expedite opportunities to get transportation when you just want to go to the grocery store.
Yes.
And so we're exploring some ways with some of the private corporations that have those kinds of almost instantaneous show up to your door transportation, trying to find possibly some of the more blessed, deeper pockets corporately, privately, that might contribute to some effort like that we could set up as a pilot project, perhaps, here in Southern California, so that when a vet, yes, we can arrange for transportation for them to their clinics.
Yes.
Not a problem.
I have to tell you something. Last night I was thinking quite a bit about the organization. I in my head, I had this thought that I would love to be a founder of, the idea I have in my mind is the organization would be called I Drive. So it's an I, then the word drive. And it would be specifically sort of like Uber or Lyft, those organizations, but it would be really focused on, it would be what I call vet-centric. The focus of it is really to get veterans to have greater independence with a company that has a plethora of different cars, from a small car to SUV to a large truck that they may need to move things or to just to go to the store, like you said, but some option whereby it will be made available and will be paid for by the state or by the federal government that will be actively involved in getting transportation for veterans.
Yeah, thank you. You brought up some of those organizations that do it very well out there, and I want to explore finding out if we can set up just a special fund in one of those organizations, so that if a veteran, instead of putting it on his charge card, he can actually put it on a fund that has been perhaps donated by some well-meaning corporation.
Yes.
Maybe they even get a tax write-off. It could be a win-win, it would seem.
For everyone.
And so I guess I'm putting the word out for ideas and thoughts from people that we can possibly make this happen.
Well, I'm with you there. I'll sit on the board with you.
Thank you.
Like I said, my idea is I drive, and I think it's very, very doable. I think the funding could be easy, because think about this: if we would actually get Lyft or Uber involved, or maybe like the Gates Foundation, or even OWN with Oprah Winfrey, some really big what I call heavy mega hitters who have the money and the consciousness and the heart to donate. Let's just say 5 or 10% of their net per year.
Wow.
I think that would set up a fund that could work in perpetuity, really to help veterans from every walk of life
Yes,
to
it
be
could.
able to get around. So, I thought about this a lot last night, and don't know. I know I have a lot of things on the burner coming up for me, and I know a lot of big financial growth in time. And my goal will be to really, I give you my word today, to be actively involved in some form to have veterans garner greater, two things: greater communication and greater transportation possibilities. I think that's important.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Look forward to working with you.
Well, let me tell you, all by the grace of God, I can see it happening. I want us to not simply talk about it, but to actually, put bootstraps to the ground and really make it happen. That's what I think.
All right, we'll stay in touch.
I give you my word. I will.
Thank you.
Give you my word. Well, I got to tell you, John. I think in hearing Larry talk about it, Mr. Bustetter, who is a veteran, it must really be heartwarming for you to understand the impact that your organization is having on an individual like him, but also many other people. Think about it, you treat at least 150 veterans per year, now going to 200. Imagine the year when it's up to 3,000 to 5,000. Imagine how wonderful that'll be.
It will be, and it absolutely will happen. May not happen just at our center, but we will serve that many people over time, no question about it.
Oh, it'll definitely happen, because an organization like yours causes, for one thing, individuals have to be, one specific word that I'll use, they have to be invested. Mm-hmm. When you're invested in any organization, you are not moving. You are there for the short haul. You are there for the long haul. You are there. Nothing and no one else takes priority. You want to be there. The organization is your priority.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it really, really well.
I said it before, I feel really blessed to be part of this organization, and I started just a little over 3 years ago.
Yes.
I moved here from Maine at a time when the VA was getting a lot of negative press.
Right.
And I was hesitant to get here. And I have to tell you, I've worked in the private sector for many years. This is by far the best position that I've ever had, and I've never been able to serve and feel fulfilled like I do on a daily basis. I get up at 4:30 every day, go to the gym, and when I get on my bike to go to work, I'm inspired.
You have to be.
Every single day,
Yes.
There's something that's going to be exciting.
Yes.
And I didn't serve. I'm not a veteran.
Oh, but you are serving, though.
I'm
You're definitely an honorary veteran.
I appreciate that.
Please, you definitely.
I will take honorary.
Oh, you have that with bells and whistles. For someone like yourself to make this investment in people that you don't know, but you know what they've done for you and for the country and for myself, oh, you're a veteran. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I think veteran, for me, it's kind of like family. I think sometimes we can have friends who are more loving and kind to us than our family. I think so. We have to think of veterans the same way. You can serve veterans and be included even if you've never served outside the country. It's just as important. It's just as wonderful.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that.
Oh,
I do
absolutely.
appreciate that. And I have to say, this feels a little selfish, but I have to say it. My son just started boot camp 3 days ago now.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Where's he stationed?
He is in Oklahoma at
Great.
Fort Sill.
Oh,
So,
fantastic.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Mr. Bustetter knows.
Very well.
Yeah, so he started on a new adventure, and I have to say, as much as every veteran that I work with inspires me on a daily basis, it does change my perspective walking through the doors.
Oh, absolutely.
And knowing that my son could be receiving services similar to this at any point from here forward, it just changes my attitude.
It
It
has
was
to.
already good, but it just adds another level of investment.
I think it's fantastic. What do you see as the growth? I'd like to hear from you and Mr. Bustetter. What do both of you, Mr. Bustetter, I'd like you to talk about this first. What do you see as the growth of an organization like this? What do you think is the potential?
Well, the potential is is limitless, quite frankly.
Yes.
If I may underscore what John mentioned about him and his excitement about being there,
Yes.
there is not, there's not a single person with whom I've interacted that doesn't enjoy their work,
Yes.
doesn't enjoy their job.
Yes.
It's amazing when you go to a place what was the old TV show? Cheers, I guess it was. You go someplace where everybody knows your name.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
come into that place, they know your name
Right.
all day long, 24/7. They're behind you like a bunch of all-seeing eyes.
Yes.
Honestly,
Yes.
it's an incredible place that I wish everyone could visit
Yes.
and take a tour. There are other areas that John didn't get a chance to mention, but places like vision skills, I don't know if he touched on that, or orientation and mobility. I mean, in my own personal experience, had it not been for the skills I developed through the BRC at Palo Alto on using a cane, and when I needed to travel around LA County for various teaching appointments with Cal State Northridge, on one occasion I got out of the train that I took from the Santa Clarita Valley to Union Station. And some would say you were totally nuts to even be down there with a white cane.
Right.
But that white cane on that particular day, I will never forget, found a drop-off out there where the trains all come in, a drop that was probably 3 to 4 feet deep. And had that cane not found it, I would have gone over the edge.
Wow.
And there was a train coming.
Wow.
So that's, to me, an example of what that kind of training from a very pragmatic point of view has given to me.
That's
And
truly life-saving.
unbelievable. And so when you see an organization that examines your needs and then fulfills them
Yes.
on a daily basis, I have nothing but cheers for a BRC. I hope many people can come, visit places like this, and get to know what they're doing. To keep it ongoing, I know there's a lot of technological advantages that we get when we go there, and I suspect that over time, the use of iPads and all of that sort of instrumentation will allow us to get some of the training even from our own homes
Absolutely.
through them. So I see it ongoing as time goes along.
You know, it makes sense. Again, I think technology is at the forefront of making this even a more phenomenal organization. Because imagine if you could get trained at home via Skype, via a voice-activated program, a voice-activated application, whereby you don't have to leave the comfort of home. Or maybe, what about someone who is not only blind but doesn't have transportation or access? You know, that via Skype or some other app would be the best way for them to communicate. So I think technology really is a major player in making this organization even better. Does that make sense, John?
It absolutely makes
Yes.
sense. And that's one thing that we're working on throughout the VA right now is how do we serve people, how do we telecommunicate?
Yes.
That's not the word.
No, it makes sense, though. I
we're
like that word.
Yeah, we're
Yes.
assessing folks
Right.
and we're treating folks electronically. And it really is making a profound difference in veterans' lives. But Mr. Bustetter, Larry was saying also that he's mentioned a couple of other programs, the VA, the Visual Impairment Services Team, and I think you've mentioned
And they work with you?
they're part of our network.
Okay.
And so the Blind Rehab Center is strictly in Long Beach. We also have individuals that manage services. So that VIST coordinator, the Vision Impairment Services
Yes.
Team, they'll make sure that Larry or any other veteran that is visually impaired gets to us or gets other services that they might need. We just need to get you to the optometry. Maybe you just need some lighting, a magnifier, and a pair of glasses.
Yes.
Maybe you need someone to come to your home and get some specific training on, and this is going to sound a little silly, but how do you use your new glasses? Sometimes you get prescribed some new glasses. They're exceptionally strong. You don't know that you have to hold paperwork or sit next to a computer within 5 inches.
Right.
So it's some simple training that will make sure that people get. So that blind rehab outpatient specialist can serve people in the clinic at the Blind Rehab Center, but they also go into veterans' homes and they'll work with recommendations that they've received from optometry.
Yes.
They'll dispense devices that will help with living skills. They'll train with orientation and mobility, and they'll do some manual skills occasionally, but they kind of expand what we do at a center to people's homes because let's face it, you said it earlier, people just can't always get here.
Absolutely.
And it might not be appropriate.
Absolutely.
So
I like the fact that you actually go to their homes, more importantly, can help to equip their homes with the specific things that they need so they can do the activities of daily living, so that they can be more functional and, of course, more independent.
right. That's the whole goal of everything that we do.
Yeah,
Max-
the home visits are incredible.
Yes.
I must underscore that. And when I was at Palo Alto, one of the things that the BRCs do very well is to assess your prior life, what
Yes.
you enjoy. I was an old distance runner, but I didn't dare do distance running anymore.
Right, right, right.
Not that way.
Of course, of course.
Not cross country.
Right, right, right.
But they found that out. They got me into recumbent cycling. I was issued a side-by-side recumbent cycle. I have a sighted neighbor. He and I have been cycling now for the last 5 years. We go out 4 to 5 mornings a week. We hit the trail along the Santa Clara Riverbed in the Santa Clarita Valley.
That's awesome.
At 7 a.m., we do 10 to 12 miles a morning. Can't beat it. And it's all because of the BVA.
That's
and
fantastic.
I'm sorry, BVA and BRC working together.
That is just great. You know, when you talk about the bike, I'll share this with you. I've had this idea for years. I have like sketches of it, of a device I'd like to make eventually. I'm sure, hopefully, by the grace of God, I will. For something called echolocution. So echolocution would be a device that you put on your body as someone who doesn't have sight, and you would run with it. And when you're running, if you're getting next to a curb, side of a curb, or a tree, or a drop off of anything, it would send back a reverberation, let you know, okay, stop or go right or go left.
Wow.
And you would just know how to do it because it would give you a certain sound. And I've always thought that these are devices that could be used by people who have a type of sight impairment.
Absolutely. I'm wearing on my hip right now a device I was issued in the last couple of weeks that is nothing more than a 911 device.
Really?
When we're out there, and I think they're trying to arm many of the homeless vets with
Yes.
this device, I simply press the button and I have an online 911 operator instantly right where I
That's
can talk
fantastic.
to them.
That's fantastic. And I agree, homeless vets should have that. I also think our country has to be really cognizant of the fact that those two words should never go together, homeless and vet. You know,
Thank you.
there can be a homeless individual, there can be a veteran who is in search of a home, a homeless person in search of a home, but a homeless veteran, that to me is an oxymoron. There's no way that should happen.
Great point.
It's just the truth. It really is. You know, I really think, John, what your organization is doing is really phenomenal. And I think the depth of what it can do with respect to growth is even more profound. And I think it's wonderful to have an individual like you who is invested, who is authentically invested. I think it's wonderful to hear from an individual like you who is really living in a state of gratitude, knowing that even if you don't get a thank you, being on the job is enough. You know, one of my prayers I always say is that, God, if you never do another thing for me, you've done enough. And I think when you live in a place knowing that you are giving back to a community, that you're trying to be the best that you can for individuals who are disenfranchised, thought of being less than, how could you not be doing the right thing? How could you not wake up happy to go to work every day?
It's true. It's absolutely true. The gratitude that we actually do receive from most of our veterans, 99.9% of the folks that come through here, are so thrilled to have done what they've done and to gain the skills that they've received.
Yes.
And the equipment that they've received to help accommodate for this vision loss is just, it's beyond words. It really is on a daily basis. Well, it is beyond words. I'm truly
is.
grateful, and the gratitude that comes back is tenfold.
It has to be. What about for yourself, Mr. Bustetter?
Oh,
How did it feel for you, young man,
Oh, my
to
goodness.
be a part of this organization?
It's terrific. Where could I go and sit down with someone, for example, be issued an iPhone
Yes.
that has complete training for voiceover features? I can take this iPhone that I was issued, never see anything on it, and navigate it successfully
Yes.
now. Fully competent to find anything and everything I need to find. I can upload any digitized book that's in the
On the
Library of
lexicon?
Congress
Yes.
through the system called BARD. I have about 18 of them loaded up here. I've read more books, for example, auditorially in the last 2 to 3 years than I read in the last 15, 20 years of my life.
That's fantastic.
Because of this. And I can navigate on a device like this completely without seeing any of it,
Right.
all by touch and auditory. And it's because of the training that I've received there that's given me that.
It's fantastic. And what about the center? How is it funded?
Well, it's funded through the VA completely as
That's
a part of the federal
fantastic.
government. We're really lucky because of the BVA. We've expanded over the years. We went from a very few centers back in 1948, the first, back in Hines. We had one. We now have 14, and we've also increased the visual visual impairment services team and the blind rehab outpatient specialists, we've more than doubled in the last decade.
It's
So we
just-
serve more and more folks.
That's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I want to really thank you for being here, John, and also Mr. Bustetter. Thanks for being here today, just taking time to really talk about this great organization, what they've done. You know, I want to tell everyone, you know, we're going to have links to on my website of how to reach them. And I want to give you the organization again. It's the Charles Robert Schultz OD Jr. Blind Rehabilitation Center. And we'll have links on my website of how to reach them. And I want to tell you, if you really want a phenomenal speaker, John and Larry, these are your guys because they really talk from the heart. And more importantly, they really live it because life is experiential. So you can only talk about what you've lived. So it's a blessing and a privilege to have both of them here with us today. I want to thank them tremendously.
Thank
Well, absolutely.
you.
This is Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join me on all my social media platforms. You know what they are, of course. I'm there. We'll have links to the Rehabilitation Center, and I hope you reach out to them. And as John said earlier, and so did Larry, go by and visit, be a part of. Maybe go by and volunteer. Donate something. Sometimes donating can just be not simply your treasure, but your time and your presence. Sometimes that's enough. And guess what? I'm going to remind you that just the way you are enough. This is Dr. Levi. Have a great day. Remember, every day is a gift. I'll see you soon. Enjoy your Veterans Day. Honor those great women and men who've given so very much. Bye.